Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 5th edition of the A.D.C. Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Drew Bender, alongside my friends Alex Bengera, Chase Garinger, and Gabe Levy. Today we'll discuss episodes 9 and 10 of The Last Dance, the NCAA football season this year, the golf match this weekend between Tiger Woods and Peyton Manning versus Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady, and much more. As always, for the best sports news and insight, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link will be right on our Instagram and Twitter pages at A.D.C. Sports Pod. So let's start with The Last Dance. So the documentary wrapped up this weekend. I thought it was unbelievable to see the end. It was so interesting. And for me, the most interesting part was just seeing how the team just totally, they were washed in the finals. They were completely drained. But how that team totally kind of fell apart after that season was interesting for me. But I just think it's worth taking a look at, how deeply was it Michael leaving? They couldn't keep all these guys, but do you think Jerry Krause the Bulls they could have done a better job trying to keep pieces of the team together? Chase?
Well, yeah, I think Jerry Krause was you got to give him the credit he deserved. He was one of the best GMs at the time, maybe the best GM ever, you can argue, but because he brought that team together and they're falling apart. I mean, Michael Jordan was exhausted. You saw him at the end. To top it off, that was amazing for him. But then Pippen, at the end, they explained how rebuild mode, Phil Jackson wasn't coming back, and no matter how good was Phil Jackson, they would not let him come back. So and the owner of the Bills actually offered to Phil Jackson to come back, and then Phil Jackson knew Jerry Krause would be kind of mad at that, so Phil Jackson left, and the team was in a rebuild mode, and Phil Jackson even said Jerry Krause could have won another championship in a couple of years because of his such good GM skills. But, you see how that played out. They never won a championship since then. Steve Kerr left, Scottie Pippen left, all their players left, and it was just a rebuild mode from there. But, that team, that documentary was amazing. So, that team, how they stick together through it all. They won 6 championships. It's crazy.
Well, Chase, I agree with you on that. Jerry Krause didn't get a lot of credit that he deserved, and he didn't deserve a lot of credit, but maybe not as much as he wanted. And the Bulls had a great run, and personally, I view the 90s Bulls Michael Jordan, Pippen, Steve Kerr, Rodman, and the entire 90s Bulls team, and the faculty, the whole staff, as a family, personally. And they had a great run and all, but it was kind of time for end. Like you said, Phil Jackson, he wasn't going to return, so I guess it was time for a rebuild.
Yeah, and I honestly think that Jerry Krause, he didn't do a great job, because now you look at the Bulls in 2020, and they're one of the worst teams in the league, other than only about 8 years ago when they had Derrick Rose. So they haven't been anything but bad since Michael Jordan left, and it was the end of the dynasty. So I think, honestly, if Phil Jackson did return like the owner Jerry Reinsdorf asked him to, I think, honestly, they probably could have won another championship, because Michael Jordan said that he would have played another season if they invited him back. And he thought that Dennis Rodman would have played another season and Steve Kerr would have played another season. But he also said that Scottie Pippen may have needed some persuading. But at the end of the day, you really think he wouldn't have missed out on a 7th championship. So honestly, if Jerry Krause was more open to another championship, which would have been better for the team, I honestly think that they would have won the number 7.
Yeah, well, I actually have a point here that you made, which was very good. Jordan even said in the documentary he was fresh, he could return, but he wouldn't if Phil Jackson didn't return. So I believe they definitely could have won the 7th championship if it wasn't for Jerry Krause forcing Phil Jackson to. He said it at the start of the season, which was kind of awkward for Phil Jackson. He was like, "Oh, you're definitely not returning next year." And he said it at the start of the season, so that was just a little awkward for the team. They won another championship. The dynasty ended at that point, and I thought that was probably the best dynasty of all time. And they definitely could have won a 7th championship, but you shouldn't be mad because 6 is good anyway. So
No, I know, but there's just something I want to, say about Jerry Krause here. And I personally believe he built an amazing team. I mean, he really, whether, Tony Kukoc, obviously Scotty and Jordan in the Olympics, like, we're not happy with it. He ended up being a very good player for the Bulls. He brought in Rodman. He brought in Pippen. I mean, I felt like I just felt that his desire to have everything like his own talent. Michael was drafted before he was GM. Okay, but he couldn't accept that. And he needed that team to kind of be all him. So I think like when Michael speaks about him and is upset with it, I think it turns people like away of like the great work that he did for that franchise, because I really thought he really did some great like work in Chicago with that team. But then again, I thought it could have been a lot better of a scenario if he was able to just kind of accept that, Michael was not, brought in by him. But I really do want to just give him credit, because I felt like, sometimes that gets overlooked when like, Michael or even like Phil will talk. But, and obviously Phil Jackson's a great coach. But I just think Jerry Krause deserves, a lot of credit, because he really did a great time with that team. And now I want to ask a question for Gabe here. Do you think that the 90s Bulls were the greatest dynasty of all time?
No, there's no way they can be, because you just have to look at the Celtics. They won 11 championships within 13 years, and you can't say anything against that. The Bulls won 6 championships, which is a lot, but when you look at 11 championships in 13 years, that is utter domination.
Yeah, well, I actually have a point here, Gabe. I was watching a segment the other day. Are rings really like there's other things besides rings. You can have stats and also the time period. That's the most important part of it. The time period. The Celtics definitely would have struggled a lot more in the Jordan time period. But you never know. Could they have won 11 rings in the Jordan period? I don't know, but I just think when Jordan was there, that was such a tougher NBA. You had the bad boys; they were just knocking people down every single day. The Bulls could not get a run. I definitely think the Bulls, if Jordan was in the Bill Russell era, I definitely actually think the Bulls could have won 10 or more championships.
I agree. But then again, I want to say something. I want to say, there were some really, 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 talented players at that time. I think the game changes. At least now, I feel in the NBA, like, and this has changed a lot over time. When you look at these dynasties in the NBA, I think we have to take into consideration how the game has changed and how the league has changed. Right now, there are so many players moving around. Like, you even look at like Golden State, like a lot of those players have moved on. Like, they haven't had that same time span as like the 90s Bulls did. And I think it's changed a lot. So I think even like, let's say like LeBron, he could be arguably like the second best player in history. He's been on so many different teams, not like Michael, who's just was on the Bulls and then obviously went to the Wizards later, but he was kind of not stuck, but he was with the Bulls for a whole period of time, like a good amount of time. So I think when you look at dynasties, like, I don't know if we're ever going to see a dynasty that last this long ever again, because of just the way the game has changed and the way, like, money and different things like that. If anyone has anything to add.
I think that the greatest dynasty of all time, and I would bet all of you would disagree on me with this, the Lakers. I think the Lakers are the best dynasty of all time because you have
But
Kobe,
Alex,
you
they
have
only
Shaq,
won 3
you have
championships.
Kareem.
Yeah, I think I just think no, but I
know,
think
but
championships,
still,
it doesn't matter. Big names don't matter. Yes, Shaq was amazing. Kobe was amazing, but and who did the Bulls, like, they obviously did Scotty, superstar, Michael, superstar, Dennis Rodman, superstar, but who, like, it wasn't like they had all these, like, they had guys who could step up. They had guys like Steve Kerr, John Paxton, Bill Wennington, Ben Wennington, Tony Kukoc. It's not just like, oh, you have Kobe, you're or you have Shaq, you're the best dynasty ever. Like, that's not how it is. I think championships are a huge part, and just overall success for the amount of period times they were on the team. You also have to take account, like, if a team won 3 out of 3 years, is that better than like just 6 out of 12? Like, you have to think about that when the core was together. I think that is really that's my thought on the dynasty.
And yeah, Drew, I totally agree with you, because and also the Lakers lost against the Pistons, and that's what broke up their team. If maybe they didn't lose to the Pistons, maybe they would have kept on going. but the relationship between Kobe and Shaq can never be bonded again. And I'm a big Lakers fan, but I'm not going to go out and say that those Lakers, when they won 3 championships in a row, aren't better than the Celtics, who won 11 and 13. You can't argue against 11 championships.
You can't, and I totally agree. But yeah, and I agree with that, and I think championships are huge, but we also always need to take into consideration how long the team has been together, because I think that's huge, the amount of years, because 3 out of 3, you have to balance it. But I personally do not believe just because they had a couple successful players, quite a few, but just because players were successful in their entire career doesn't mean the combination of all of them was that amazing. Like, that's just kind of my point.
Drew, Gabe, you make some great points, but I just still believe it's the Lakers. But you do make some good points.
But you could also say that the Bulls, they won 3 in 3 years. Then Michael Jordan retired, and then they won another 3 in 3 years. They repeated twice, which the Lakers only did once.
Yeah, look at this, Alex, though. I mean, you could even argue, honestly, this is a bold thing, but the Spurs, when they had Tim Duncan, they could have even been better than the Lakers. They had one of the greatest coaches of all time in Popovich. I mean, even the Lakers with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic, and all those players all those superstars that were on those teams. I mean, the Tim Duncan San Antonio Spurs, that was probably one of the best dynasties in the NBA.
Yeah, but also the thing about the Spurs is that they never won back to back, which they can't really be a dynasty.
Yeah, but they did win.
Yeah.
They won 5 championships in that time span from 1999 to 2014 with Tim Duncan. And also the Los Angeles Lakers won 5, but I mean, Tim Duncan, he didn't even have those amazing superstars around him like Magic and Kobe and Shaq and all those players.
He had David Robinson, he had Kawhi, he had Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. I mean, he had a good team around him. You can't.
But they weren't the superstars like Kareem and Magic,
Okay.
Back to the Bulls thing. The Bulls are better than the Celtics. Like, rings, is it all about the rings? Could you include stats?
Really,
like
it's all about winning. It's about winning.
It is about the rings.
I don't.
Because would you rather win 3 MVPs or 3 NBA championships? I'm sure everyone would say 3 NBA championships.
Well, yes, but also the time period.
No, I understand the time period. I understand the time period. But what I don't understand is the game is about winning. I don't care if you have 10 points, 40 points, or 0 points. If your team wins, you should be happy. And I think that's, if you look at dynasties, it's not just about, he had 50 points in the finals. No, winning.
Regular seasons were very different from the Bulls and the Celtics. The Bulls even had better sometimes they even had better regular seasons. Like when the Celtics, they went 96 and 51, and the Bulls went 90 and 26. Those were their best seasons, and I think the Bulls seasons in general are obviously better than the Celtics, but the time period is just the crazy thing in this. And you can argue either. I really don't.
It doesn't really matter about the times, when they were.
Yes, it does.
No,
Yes, it
definitely
does.
It doesn't matter when in the time zone. That it's the end of the story is that they won 11 championships in 13 years. You can't.
So what? The time period.
What do you mean? So what?
The Bill
they
Russell
won 11
and the
championships.
But the teams in the.
They won 11 championships.
The teams in the Russell in the Jordan area were
of course, you expect players to get better as the game evolves.
They were so much better. You have the bad boys. You have the Pacers. You have Karl Malone and the Jazz. I mean, who in the Bill Russell era could have been better than the Celtics besides the Lakers?
Wilt Chamberlain,
besides the Lakers,
a top 5 NBA player, one of the most dominant players ever. He scored 100 points in a single game.
The teams.
I don't care about how good the teams were, or how bad the teams were. They won 11 championships. And
the time period, though.
Yes, but that's saying. But the Celtics players were just as good as probably the others. Yeah, and there were.
You think Bill Russell and the Celtics could beat Jordan and the Bulls in that? Like the play style was so much different in the Jordan era. They were so much more.
Well, yes,
aggressive.
because I'm sure if Bill Russell was born when Michael Jordan was, he'd be playing a completely different game than what he was when he won 11 championships. Like, it's not just like you're born in the 60s and then you just like play a totally different game. That's how you're like taught to play. It's not his fault that he's playing worse because he's in a different time period. He won 11 championships in the NBA, and that you can't argue against that.
I mean, overall, the NBA is the NBA, and I think overall, all that really matters is that you win. I thought we saw that with the Bulls, and just to wrap this up, I thought the last thing, it was just so well thought out and just reported, covering it. The past couple weeks have just been amazing, and I'm gonna miss it. And it was really just an amazing documentary. And obviously we saw the Bulls play the Utah Jazz in Michael's last game, and basically the last game of the dynasty. And we're really sad to announce that Utah Jazz coach Jerry Sloan has passed away, and our condolences are with the Sloan family, and we are really, really sorry. And this is very, very sad for the Sloan family and the basketball world. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to discuss the NCAA football season 2020. Some teams may not be able to participate. How is that going to look? Is it fair? And we were going to talk about the match this weekend, Sunday, 3 p.m. TNT. We'll preview it, and we will be right back. Welcome back to the A.D.C. Sports Podcast. Next thing I want to talk about is the NCAA football season. There's been so much, talk and controversy over this season because, we really don't know what is going to happen this year. And, colleges are letting athletes back on the campuses, I believe, by early June. But a topic has been is it fair to have a college football season if some teams are not able to participate? If only, let's give an example. Let's look at the Big Ten. Let's say Michigan is not reopened as a state. All the other states that Big Ten schools are in have reopened. Michigan and Michigan State cannot participate in the season, while all the other teams can. And that could be a lot more controversial in also other states with a lot of college football teams in certain conferences. So I think this is really interesting. And I want to start here with Alex. Do you think it is fair to have a college football season if there are a lot of teams that can't participate? Let's say you only have 8 out of 12 in a conference. Is that fair?
Personally, I do think it is. It isn't fair to the other teams, I know, but if there's a college football season available for most teams, then that opportunity should be taken. But if that's not the case, if pretend that happens, but we don't have a college football season, it would be ideal to have it in the spring.
Well, Alex, I disagree with you here. And the reason why, if you're going to have some teams participating, it's only fair that you have every team. I mean, for me, it's just have every team or have no teams. Because if you have one team that's not able to play, that's just not fair to the conference. And what if they could have gotten the title that year? You never know. I mean, it's not all about that, though, because the chance to play for the teenagers out there that want to play, it's just not fair to all of them.
There's another point I want to bring up here is, let's say, Colorado can't play. A lot of Colorado's players will transfer out to go to Oregon because that state is open. That's the problem, and that affects long term. That's just not this year.
Yeah, and I also think that some players, they may have to leave. They may want to play one more year, but their eligibility is gone because they were a senior this year, and they may.
But those players would get an extra year of eligibility. That's logical.
Well, yeah, but you're not sure what they'll do because.
Maybe.
I know it's logical, but if most teams are playing, and then there's a few teams that aren't playing, then players on the teams that aren't playing, I think a lot of them, they may just declare for the draft instead of playing the last season.
Maybe. That may be the case. When Drew came up with the point about the transferring, I thought that was a very interesting point because if players want to have that benefit of being able to play an extra season before they go to the NFL draft, they'll just go and transfer, which is just unfair.
Right, my question is even if you're a backup or whatever, why wouldn't you go to a team that is seeing time on the field this year than just stay on a team that's just not playing this year? And I just don't think it's right. I think it's all or nothing.
Yeah, I understand what you guys are saying. You make some good points there. But I still believe that if there is a college football season where most teams could play, I do believe that should happen.
Right. And I understand there's so much economic impact, so that's why I think it's so hard for them to just cancel it just because it'll mess up a few teams next 5 years. But I don't think it's fair as a fan, as a fan of the sport, but you have to realize the economics of this, and it's a pretty big deal. So I think canceling this could be rough. But a bunch of schools have, proposed plans for like the academic year next year, and it really also depends on what the colleges are going to do next year.
I also looked at the statistic here, and it actually shows that if college football is not played in the season, then college football could lose at least $4 billion in revenue, which could have been made from all those teams. So the economic issue is so prevalent here.
These athletic departments, they get most of their money from football. So now let's move on and let's talk some live sports, which obviously we had the tailor-made skins match last weekend between Ricky Fowler and Matthew Wolf versus Dustin Johnson and Rory McIlroy, and that was fun. Saw that Rory played really well. That was nice to see. World's best golfer currently. Really lack of competitive play hasn't affected him too much. And then this weekend we have the match. It is going to be very exciting. Peyton Manning and Tiger Woods versus Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. It is at the Medalist Golf Club in Palm Beach County, and this is Tiger's home course, and I want to hear all your picks, but I'm going with Manning and Woods here. It's Tiger's home course. Obviously, he's played this so much during the quarantine, probably twice a day. Before, this is like his go-to, course at home. Whenever he's at home and he wants to play or needs to practice, he's going to Medalist. So, and then Peyton Manning has way more time on his hand to play golf than current Tampa Bay Buccaneer quarterback Tom Brady. And I just think Woods will outplay Mickelson at his house. And I know, there's been some trash talk, and I'm really excited. 3 Eastern on TNT. It's not pay-per-view like last year. Last year's was pay-per-view, so a lot more people I expect will be tuning into this, and everyone's home during this time. Let's start with Chase here. What's your pick?
Well, I'm sticking with you, Drew. I'm going Manning and Woods, not just because I'm a Broncos fan. Woods is on his home court. It's on the field, but Mickelson did beat him in 2018. He beat him a 22 hole against Woods, and Woods is playing at his home. So he's definitely the favorite here. And also your point about how Manning has a lot more time on his hands. He definitely could do a lot more golf, and I think it's just a great event, not just for who's gonna win or anything, because they're donating $10 million whoever wins, which is a crazy amount.
That's what they did. That's what they did last weekend, and that was just nice to see.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see how much they're helping.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think Manning and Woods will win just because Tiger Woods. I think I have a bit more confidence with him because he's playing at his home course, like you guys have both said. And I'm not really sure about Peyton Manning and Tom Brady because it's not like I've ever seen them play golf before. But I think just the experience from Tiger Woods will play a part in him winning.
Well, I have to agree with all of you here, too. It's on Tiger's home field. Peyton Manning's got a lot more time on his hands, like you said, Drew. And, Tom Brady, he's a quarterback right now in the NFL. So, I got to side with you guys, too, on this one.
But, you can also make a case for Mickelson because he did beat Woods in a 22-hole course against Woods. So, it could go either way, really. You could have Tom Brady could go off in this golf match. You never know. Golfing is like a event where it could go either way. Sometimes people have their bad days.
Yeah, it's such an inconsistent sport. It's very inconsistent because it's not a team. It's a single person. Someone has a bad day, And, I would say Woods has looked better in the past 3 years. Woods has looked better. But what I will say is Woods did not look great towards the end of the season this year. At the Genesis, he made the cut, but he was last after the cut. He looked a little beat up. I think he had some injury issues, and he said he would have been ready for the Masters if it were to happen in April. But we don't really know, so it's going to be interesting to see how he looks. And we got the PGA Tour starting in a couple weeks, so it's kind of like a little preview. And then we got it starting in Fort Worth, Texas, with the Charles Schwab Challenge. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the PGA Tour come back, and I think it's going to be like the first live sports association to come back. So a lot of people are looking forward to that. And now let's go to the NFL and let's talk about the Patriots, how they look this year. So Jared Stidham, who we really think that the Patriots are going to go all in on this year, he'll be the QB at Auburn. He threw for 36 touchdowns and 5,952 passing yards with completion percentage of 63%. Patriots lost key pieces such as Tom Brady and Kyle Van Noy on the defense. How do you guys believe the Patriots are looking this year, and what do you think their record will be, Alex?
I think the Patriots won't be that great this year. Yes, they still have a really good defense. They have Stephon Gilmore, but what about their offense? Their offense is looking pretty bleak. So I predict they will be 6-10.
Yeah, and I think with the losses they have with Brady, Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins, and Steven Gostkowski, they haven't made any real big splashes in free agency. They gained Josh Uche, which is the only big name in the draft.
Well, he's rookie. He's a rookie.
Yeah, I know he's a rookie. And they re-signed their offensive guard Joe Thuney, but that's about it. And Kyle Van Noy, he had 56 tackles, 6.5 sacks. And Jamie Collins had 81 tackles, 7 sacks, and 3 interceptions. There's really no one that they've gotten to replace both Jamie Collins and Kyle Van Noy. And also Brady. I don't think Stidham is the right guy for them. Last year he threw 14 yards and 1 interception. I mean,
right, but he got no time, and there was a fluke. The tipped ball. But Belichick is a great evaluator of quarterbacks, and he's got to have something he really likes in that guy. So I just say, you know what? I have a good feeling, and I think Belichick, their way of getting talent and not, and I think they still have, they're obviously, I think Edelman is one of the best route runners in the game. I think that's no question. And I think he'll be a piece, but I think you got to have other players. Like, when they were really successful, they had guys like Danny Amendola, Chris Hogan, Rob Gronkowski, obviously, but I'm talking about receivers and, even guys like LaFell, like those were guys who, were threats. And I felt like, if you're double teaming Edelman and then, I have N'Keal Harry. I look forward to seeing him. I think he could have a big year, but I think they needed a little bit. If they really want to help Stidham out, I think they need a little bit more on that offense. And I want to hear what Chase is.
Yeah. I think like Drew said, Belichick definitely knows what he's doing. He's one of the best coaches ever to coach the game of football. And I mean, if you look at their schedule here, I'm looking at some games. They play the Seahawks. They're a pretty tough team. Then they play the Chiefs, the best team in the league, obviously. And then at week 7, they play the 49ers. And then they play the Ravens. So they actually have a lot of tough teams to beat. And I definitely think they could if Belichick has these. I mean, N'Keal Harry is definitely going to be a very good improving star like a rising star in the NFL, if you call him that. So I think Jarrett Stidham and N'Keal Harry will be a good pair, but I just don't think they're gonna have enough. They're definitely in a rebuild mode on their offense now, so I don't think they're gonna have enough. I don't know, just like firepower to beat those teams such as like the Chiefs and the Seahawks and the 49ers with their amazing defense. So I have them going as a record as 5-11.
I agree with Chase. I mean, they have such a hard record. They actually have the hardest record in the league if you look at winning percentage from last year. And like I said before, I don't think Jared Stidham's the right guy, or at least yet for them. So I think they go 5-11 or even 4-12.
You know what my record prediction is? I say they go 7-9, and I just want to shift gears a tiny bit and talk about the AFC East, the division with the Jets, Bills, Patriots, and Dolphins. And I would like to talk about who you guys think is going to win. I personally am going the Bills by I think they'll grind it out, because even last year, like you saw, like they were getting close to, beating the Patriots. And I think, sorry, Gabe, but I don't love the Jets this year at all.
I mean, the Jets have actually the second hardest schedule in the NFL. If you look at winning
but that's also including.
That's going to be pretty hard for them.
And I think the Bills are in a very good place right now. I think the Bills are in a very good place. I like where the Bills are.
Yeah, Drew, absolutely. The Bills, honestly, they had a great season last year. They were a wild card team. And ideally, they would win a division with their record last year. So I got them winning the AFC East as well.
Well, you could also look at some sleeper teams, because, I mean, Miami Dolphins,
Patriots, even the Patriots, like the Miami, they've got a lot of talent. And they're building something. I really like what Brian Flores is doing down there. Patriots, here, I think Belichick knows what he's doing enough to get them the 8 and 8. That's my.
I mean, they lost. They lost in week 17, so you never know.
I know, but that was when things were going downhill.
Yeah, I think that with the AFC East, I think the Bills will win the AFC East, but I think the Jets and the Dolphins, I think they'll come in second and third. I think the Jets will come in second, Bills in third, and the Patriots in last. I don't like their team this year, but I think either the Jets or Dolphins, either one. I think one of them will get one of the wild card spots this year, because even though this division has a very hard record, yeah. Right.
Let's play a scenario. We have
Mhm.
Bills win division, Chiefs win division, Ravens win division, and Titans win division.
Okay.
You're putting the Jets or the Dolphins over. All right.
Indianapolis, I don't
with
like
Phillip
Indianapolis
Rivers.
squad.
You got
the Broncos. They're actually pretty. The Broncos are pretty good.
You've got
the Raiders.
No.
I
got
wouldn't
the
call the
Vikings.
Raiders a
Both-
contender.
Right, both.
The Raiders.
I call them more than the Jets and the other. I'm naming teams that are better, that I think have a better chance than the Jets or the Dolphins. That's what I'm saying.
No, but Gabe, you got the Buccaneers and Saints in the South. Oh, sorry, that's NFC. Never mind. Well, look, you have the Broncos, then you also have the Steelers, who have
Ben
one of the best defenses in the league.
Roethlisberger's old. They don't have many.
Hey,
They don't have many.
Browns.
I think the Browns will win the division, but
He's still pretty good. He is pretty good. He just had a really bad.
I have a lot of questions about the Steelers. I think the Jets, they've rebuilt their whole offense. They got a new wide receiver in Denzel Mims out of the draft. They rebuilt their whole offensive line. And well, Jamal Adams is still a question in the defense, but that defense is a very good defense. That's one of the best rush defenses last year. Not so great on passing, but they signed Pierre Desir from the Colts after he was dropped, and after having a bad year last year, but 2 years ago he was pretty good. And they also drafted Bryce Hall from Virginia, who was a steal in the 5th round. So I think the defense has gotten a lot better. I think the offense has also gotten a lot better. So I think if I had to look at all the AFC, I think the Jets would probably be the second wild card for me.
Yeah, and also this year, because of the new format, there's 7 teams in each playoff, so it's a little bit different for this season. So maybe the Jets could clinch a 7th seed, but I really don't know. It could play out any.
And I also think when I look at Sam Darnold, yeah, he didn't have 2 great first seasons, but those last
he saw some ghosts.
last 8 games of the season, he went 6-2 with a not very good offensive line.
That was the easiest midseason.
Not so great wide receivers. Le'Veon Bell was struggling. I mean, there were some very bad teams, but there were also some decent teams that they beat. They beat the Raiders 34-3 at home. I mean, they put up a fight against the Ravens, kind of. And I mean, they beat the Bills away in Buffalo. I mean, I think Sam Darnold, he has a completely new offensive line. I think he can really make a lot of steps into maybe even being a Pro Bowl quarterback this year.
Well, Gabe, one more point on this topic is like the Jets are, in my opinion, they're a pretty young team. They're kind of like the Nuggets in the NBA, actually. I think I compare them to. Like, they can have very good wins against very good teams, and they could have very bad losses against very bad teams. So it's interesting to see like how they'll play out in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're one of those sleeper teams. You never know.
I'm not sure how they'll do, because they have a very hard record all along with the Patriots and the rest of the division. But you also have to.
They have a pretty easy division, though.
The division, it's up for grabs. And honestly, if the Bills don't play well, like a lot of people think they do, but honestly, they may play a lot worse than people think.
They got Stephon.
Yeah, I know.
Diggs.
I know they have a very good team, but I see a few people saying that the Bills may go not as good as they think. I mean, I think the Jets, I think they'll get second in the division this year, but I think next few coming years, I think the Jets will really be a great team in the AFC East.
I think it's really such an interesting topic with because even what Chase said with the 7-team playoff, that's new this year. Hopefully, but that's new this year, so it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be different. There could be some teams sneaking in there with 9-7 record. You never know. I honestly don't think it's terrible because I hate when I see a team. It doesn't happen, but a couple of years ago, this happened in the NFC South, I believe. One team got in with a 7-9 record, and there were teams who worked their butt off to get to 10-6 and didn't make it. And I think that kind of
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember that. I think it was
15 or
16. I think it was actually in the
Yeah,
NFC.
I said
Yeah.
NFC South.
Yeah.
The NFC South.
Panthers.
It was the Falcons and the Panthers, I think. And that just I think that eliminates that and it gives because I hate to see that.
Mhm.
That's not
And-
what I like to see.
Yeah, I remember in 2016, the Jets had a 10-6 record, and in the NFC, there were teams with an 8-8 or a 9-7 record just going through the playoffs, and that just pissed me off so much.
Right? Yeah, it does. It does definitely. And I think it's a great discussion, and I think it's definitely something we're going to continue to talk about as we hopefully for this season that's going to hopefully happen. A lot of stuff we don't know yet about coronavirus in the NFL, but what we do know is we're going to continue to give you the best sports analysis and insight we can. Another episode coming next week, but for now, have a great day, and we'll see you later.